There are moments in life when you find yourself standing at a crossroads. No map could have drawn, no street signs, no flashing arrows, no crowd urging you forward. Just you, and a stillness so deep, it feels like it's breathing with you. In that quiet, something beyond words, whispers not in urgency, not in fear, but with a gentle certainty. Keep going. It's strange, isn't it? We spend so much of our lives chasing answers, trying to piece together the puzzle of what's right or wrong, where we should be, who we should become. But every now and then, the search stops not because we've found all the answers, but because we've realized they've been here all along, hidden, not in some distant land or buried treasure, but in the quiet center of ourselves. This journey, it isn't about collecting something new from the outside world. It's about remembering what has never left you. Some call it intuition, others call it awareness, the quantum field, or simply the knowing, whatever name we give it. It's the same thread running through every heartbeat, every breath, every step you've ever taken. And the funny thing is, it doesn't shout. It doesn't demand your attention. It waits, patiently, like a river that never forces you to swim, but is always ready to carry you if you step in. I think of it like walking through a fog. At first, you're straining to see the road ahead, trying to control every step, mapping every turn. But the more you fight the fog, the thicker it seems to become. And then, one day, you just stop. You loosen your grip. You let your shoulders drop. And suddenly, the fog isn't a wall. It's a companion, guiding you to slow down, to trust the ground beneath your feet, even if you can't see a mile ahead. You see, the world has taught us to move with force, push harder, try more, think faster. But the language of the soul doesn't follow the logic of the clock or the calendar. It moves in rhythms, in whispers, in invisible currents. And when you're still enough, you can feel it, not in your head, but in that space just behind your rib cage, the space that knows before you do. This isn't about passivity. It's not sitting on the sidelines waiting for life to happen to you. It's about alignment, being so attuned to that inner frequency that every step, even the smallest one, is infused with purpose. You're no longer running to escape where you are, but walking with the deep understanding that where you stand right now is already sacred ground. Some people call this trusting the process, but I think it's more than that. It's realizing that you are the process. You are not a separate traveler trying to reach the field. You are the field. You are the wave and the ocean, the seed and the soil. And when you see life this way, you stop trying to force the bloom before its season. You let it unfold, petal by petal, knowing the timing is never wrong. I've learned that the moments I've felt most lost were often the moments I was closest to something true, not because I was failing, but because life was quietly rearranging itself to match what I had already become on the inside. It's like rearranging furniture in the dark. You might bump into things for a while, but when the lights come on, you realize everything is exactly where it needs to be. And here's the beauty: you don't need to have it all figured out to move forward. You only need to take the next step from a place of connection rather than fear. That's how the path reveals itself, not in a flash of certainty, but in the gentle unfolding of one moment into the next. So if you're standing at that invisible crossroads right now, without a signpost in sight, maybe it's not because you're lost. Maybe it's because you're exactly where you're meant to be, on the threshold of remembering the town. And in that remembering, you'll see you were never truly searching. You were only coming home to what's been here all along. And that whisper, the one you feel more than hear, it's still there, waiting for you to notice. Keep going. 1. The unified field of love. There comes a moment, often after the storms have stripped away what you thought you knew, when you begin to see people differently. You no longer view them as characters entering and exiting your personal story, each with their own agenda. each holding something you might gain or lose. Instead, you begin to sense something quieter, deeper, almost invisible, the thread that weaves through all of us. It's not a concept you read in a book or a teaching you try to memorize. It's a recognition, almost like catching a reflection in still water. You look into someone's eyes and, for a moment, you see beyond their name, their role, their history. You see the same awareness looking back at you, the same awareness that breathes you, that beats your heart, that has walked with you through every joy and every grief. When that recognition happens, the way you approach others changes. Interactions stop feeling like negotiations or exchanges. You're not showing up with the silent question, "What can I get from you?" or "What will this cost me?" Instead, you arrive with presence, with an openness that doesn't need to win, convince, or defend. Every meeting becomes something more than words passing between two people. It becomes a mirror, one in which both of you can glimpse something true about yourselves. Sometimes that truth is beautiful, like recognizing kindness in a stranger's eyes. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, like seeing your own impatience reflected back. But either way, it's an invitation to go deeper. And when you start living from that place, you notice that love is no longer something you give or receive in measured doses. Like currency in a bank account, love simply is a field you step into. Together, the moment you allow yourself to see the other as not separate from you. I've met people for only a minute and felt like I'd known them my entire life, not because we shared stories, but because, in that brief connection, the illusion of distance dissolved. And I've also stood in front of people I've known for years and suddenly realized I had never truly seen them until that moment. This isn't about forcing harmony or pretending everyone's behavior is perfect. Boundaries still matter. Truth still matters. But when you understand that every person, no matter how different, how challenging, or how unfamiliar, is another angle of the same infinite consciousness, something softens inside you. The walls between you and them become less solid. You begin to listen differently. You're not just waiting for your turn to speak. You're listening for what's behind their words. You're feeling the spaces between sentences, sensing the shared humanity in their laughter and their tears. And in that space, even the most ordinary encounters become sacred. A brief exchange with a cashier, a smile across a crowded street, a moment of silence with someone sitting beside you on a bench, all of it becomes part of this great mirror we hold up to each other. The unified field of love is not something you reach for, it's something you remember is already here. The moment you stop seeing people as other, you find that you've been standing in it all along. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You start moving through the world, not as someone searching for connection, but as someone aware that connection is the air you've been breathing this whole time. 2. Stepping into timeless time. There comes a point when the ticking of the clock feels less like a command and more like background noise. You begin to sense that the past, present, and future aren't three separate roads stretching away from one another, but rather layers of the same vast landscape, like different shades of light playing across the same sky. When your awareness begins to expand, this truth stops being an abstract idea and starts becoming something you can feel. The events of your past don't vanish, and the future doesn't suddenly arrive in a neat package, but the boundaries between them grow soft. You realize that what you call the present moment is not a narrow point trapped between what has been and what will be. It's more like a wide, open field where all possibilities quietly exist, waiting for you to notice them. Think of it like walking into a room with dozens of doors. Each door leads to a version of your life that already exists in potential, one where the dream you hold close has already unfolded, one where the healing you long for has already taken root, one where the courage you thought you lacked has already bloomed. These doors aren't locked. They don't require years of grinding effort to open. They respond to your resonance, to the way your inner state aligns with the reality behind that door. And here's where it becomes both simple and profound. To step into a future, you don't need to push your way toward it. You tune to it now. You carry yourself as if that version of you is already breathing in this moment. You let its thoughts shape your thoughts. Its feelings color your heart. Its choices guide your hands. In this way, the so-called future doesn't come toward you. You meet it halfway. Here, in the eternal present. This is why certain moments in life feel almost déjà vu, as though you've been there before. In a sense, you have. That scene was already alive in the field of infinite possibilities, and you aligned with it just enough for it to take shape in your experience. When you understand this, regret begins to lose its grip. The past stops feeling like a chain, because you see that you are not limited to a single storyline. And fear of the future starts to dissolve, because you realize you're not at the mercy of some distant, uncontrollable fate. Instead, you're participating in a dance between who you believe yourself to be and what life mirrors back to you. It's not about denying the challenges or pretending everything is perfect. Life still asks you to walk, to act, to show up fully. But it's no longer a desperate race against time. You're not trying to outrun your failures or chase your dreams before some invisible deadline. You're learning to stand in the stillness beneath the movement, the silence beneath the noise. And from there, choose. Stepping into timeless time feels like softening into a river that's already carrying you exactly where you need to go. You don't thrash or force the current to bend to your will. You learn to listen for its pull, to trust that the version of you who has already arrived will meet you here, whispering through intuition, nudging you toward the next step. And the most beautiful part is this: when you live this way, the weight of waiting disappears. You're no longer putting your joy on hold until something happens. You allow yourself to inhabit it now. And in doing so, you become the living proof of the future you once hoped for. 3. The gardener and the garden life. In its quiet wisdom, often reveals itself through the simplest metaphors, and perhaps none is more fitting than this: your existence is a garden, and you are not just the one tending it, you are also the soil, the seed, the rain, and the sunlight. You are the gardener and the garden, inseparable from the very life you are cultivating. Every outcome you see today, every bloom, every patch of wild growth, every stubborn thorn traces back to seeds sown in another season. Some seeds you planted with full awareness, speaking intentions into the soil of your mind and heart. Others slipped in unnoticed, carried by a passing thought, a belief you inherited, or a feeling you let take root without question. The soil does not judge the seed, it only nurtures what is given to it. This is why self-awareness is not just a lofty spiritual practice, it's the hands of the gardener in the earth, feeling the texture of what is being sown. When you realize you are the one planting, you no longer wander through life wondering why the flowers you long for are absent, or why weeds seem to grow in their place. You begin to see the link between the quiet intentions you hold and the landscape you walk through. But here's where the tenderness comes. A wise gardener doesn't curse the weeds. They don't shame the soil for what it has grown. They kneel. They listen. They tend. Weeds, too, are messages, reminders of where you may have neglected to plant with care, or where you allowed seeds of fear, doubt, or resentment to settle in. Instead of fighting them with force, you gently clear the space, making room for what you truly wish to grow. And while you work, you remember that growth has its seasons. You cannot rush the unfolding of a rose any more than you can force the sun to rise earlier. Some seeds will sprout in days. Others will lie dormant, gathering quiet strength beneath the surface until the moment is right. Patience is not a passive waiting. It is an active trust in the unseen processes at work. You are also the soil itself, rich with the memories of every seed that has been planted. Some parts of you have been turned over, renewed by hardship. Others have been left untouched for years, waiting for new life to be sown there. The rain that falls on your life, the challenges, the losses, the unexpected blessings feeds the soil in ways you might not understand at the time. Even the storms have their place, breaking open what has grown too rigid, clearing space for light to reach what was hidden. And then there is the sunlight. It is the awareness you bring, the warmth of your attention. Just as a plant turns toward the sun, the seeds within you respond to the light of your consciousness. When you look at a dream, a relationship, or a part of yourself with genuine care, you are feeding it. When you ignore it, it may wither, not from lack of worth, but from lack of light. As both gardener and garden, you hold an extraordinary power, the ability to shape the landscape of your life from the inside out. This doesn't mean controlling every outcome, nor does it mean every seed will bloom exactly as you imagine. It means tending to your inner world with intention, knowing that what you cultivate there will, in time, shape the outer world you walk through. There will be seasons of planting, seasons of growth, and seasons of rest. There will be harvests that fill you with joy, and others that teach you hard truths. But through it all, you remain both the caretaker and the creation, a living reminder that the beauty of a garden is not only in its flowers, but in the devotion it takes to grow them. And perhaps the deepest truth is this: when you tend your inner garden with love, patience, and awareness, you are not just shaping your own life. You are planting seeds in the collective soil we all share, adding your quiet beauty to a world that is, itself, one vast and interconnected garden. 4. You and the quantum field are one. There's a quiet shift that happens when you stop thinking of change as something you send out into the world, and begin to understand it as something you embody, something that reorganizes the very fabric of reality from the inside out. The truth is, you are not separate from the world you walk through. You are not a lone signal trying to reach some distant receiver. You are the field itself, the living, breathing quantum web in which every possibility already exists. In the old way of thinking, we imagine ourselves as transmitters. We decide what we want, then we push it out through effort, through rituals, through constant mental rehearsal. But the deeper truth is that there is no out there, and in here, in the way we've been taught, the quantum field doesn't work in straight lines. It doesn't respond to commands like a machine. It responds to resonance, and resonance doesn't happen by force. It happens when your inner state aligns with the reality you wish to experience. Imagine a vast ocean that extends beyond sight in every direction. That ocean is the quantum field, every drop a possibility, every wave a timeline. You are not standing on the shore sending messages into the distance. You are swimming in it. Every movement you make, every thought, every feeling creates ripples that touch everything else. And here's the part that changes everything. The ripples you send are the ripples you are. When you shift within, you are not asking the universe for something new. You are reconfiguring the pattern of energy that the universe reflects back to you. You don't need to chase or convince. You become, and when you become, reality cannot help but respond in kind, because there is no border between you and the field. This is why inner work matters more than any outer strategy. You can change jobs, move cities, end relationships, and still carry the same inner frequency into every new setting. The scenery shifts, but the story repeats. It's only when the frequency itself transforms that life begins to unfold differently, not as a reward for your effort, but as a natural expression of who you are now. Think of it like tuning a musical instrument. If one string is out of tune, you can still play a song, but the dissonance will be there, woven through every note. The quantum field is the infinite orchestra, and you are one of its instruments. When you tune yourself, your beliefs, your emotional state, your way of being, You don't need to instruct the orchestra to adjust. The music simply changes. And yet, this isn't about perfection. The field doesn't demand flawless harmony. It simply mirrors what is. If you are resonating with fear, the field reflects experiences that match fear. If you are resonating with openness, it reflects openness. It is as neutral as it is vast. The gift and the challenge is that you are always participating, always shaping, even when you forget that you're doing it. The moment you recognize your unity with the quantum field, you stop seeing yourself as small or powerless. You stop waiting for permission to step into a better reality. You start to understand that changing your life is simply changing the state of the field you already are. The new opportunities, the unexpected encounters, the sudden moments of grace, they aren't being sent to you from afar. They are emerging from within you, like seeds breaking open in the warmth of spring. And perhaps most liberating of all, you realize you don't have to micromanage the how. You don't have to stand over the field with a blueprint, dictating the exact sequence of events. Your only true work is to become the version of yourself for whom the reality you desire is inevitable. The field will handle the rest. So the next time you find yourself trying to signal for change, pause. Feel into the space inside you. Ask, not, what do I want to attract, but who am I being right now? Because the field is not listening to your words, it is feeling your being. And when your being shifts, the whole ocean moves with you. 5. Silence as the bridge. There is a point you reach in your journey when you realize that not every answer is meant to be chased. Some answers, perhaps the most important ones, can't be forced into the light by relentless questioning or restless analysis. They arrive only when the noise softens, when the constant turning of the mind slows enough for a deeper voice to be heard. That voice does not speak in urgency. It speaks in stillness. We've been taught to treat silence as absence, as if it's a void waiting to be filled with words, ideas, or plans. But silence is not empty. It's the fertile ground from which all possibilities emerge. It is the soft soil that holds every seed before it breaks open. It's the womb of creation, quiet yet alive, with potential. I remember moments in my own life when I was desperate for clarity. I would pace, think harder, talk it through with anyone who would listen, as if the sheer volume of my searching would pull the truth into my hands. But the more I pushed, the more distant the answer seemed. It was only when I sat down, sometimes in exhaustion, sometimes in surrender, that I felt it, not the answer. At first, just the space, just the stillness. And in that stillness, something subtle began to form. Silence is not passive. It's an active bridge, a connection between where you are and what you have not yet seen. Imagine it like a gentle fog over a valley. You can't see the other side at first, but as you stay in the quiet, the fog thins, and the shape of the path emerges. If you rush, you'll stumble, but if you trust the stillness, each step reveals itself in perfect time. The reason silence works is because it shifts your awareness. When you are still, then you step out of the narrow corridors of the mind, the endless hallways of what if and what next, and into the open field of the present moment. In that field, you are no longer straining toward the future or clawing at the past. You are simply here, and here is the only place where truth can meet you. In the language of the quantum, silence is the collapse of unnecessary waves. It's the moment where all the noise, every scattered possibility that isn't aligned fades away, leaving only the resonance that matches who you really are. In silence, you're not disconnected from your answer. You're closer than ever, because the answer has never been out there. It has always been woven into you, waiting for you to stop long enough to notice. There's a simple way to test this. The next time you're unsure about something, whether it's a decision, a relationship, a change you feel called to make, try stepping away from the question. Don't push it aside in avoidance, but set it down gently. like placing a delicate object on a shelf. Then go into silence. That could mean sitting under a tree, feeling your breath. It could mean letting the sound of rain fill the room instead of your thoughts. It could mean walking slowly with no destination, letting your mind rest in the rhythm of your steps. And here's the magic when the answer comes. It rarely feels like a dramatic aha moment. It feels like a remembering, like you've simply uncovered something that was always yours. But hidden beneath the noise, it's not so much that you find the answer, it's that the answer finds you, because you finally created the space for it to reach you. The more you practice meeting silence as an ally, the less you fear uncertainty. You stop grasping for control in every moment, because you trust that clarity will arrive not through tension, but through alignment. Silence teaches you that life's deepest truths don't require you to wrestle them into submission. They simply require your presence. And in that presence, you start to see the bigger truth. You have never been separate from what you seek. The bridge was never something you had to build. It was always here, in the quiet, waiting for you to cross. 6. Challenges as doorways. There's a quiet moment, often after the dust has settled, when you look back at something that once felt impossible and realize it was never meant to break you. It was meant to break something in you, an old pattern, a limiting belief, a version of yourself that could no longer carry you forward. When we are in the middle of a challenge, it rarely feels like an invitation. It feels like a wall, a sudden block in the road. You might even find yourself asking, why is this happening to me? But what I've come to understand is that challenges are not walls, they are doors. And like all doors, they require you to approach, to place your hand on the handle, and to decide whether you will step through. From the perspective of expanded awareness, nothing is random. Every difficulty you meet has been drawn into your path, not as punishment, but as a precise point of transformation. The quantum field doesn't work in terms of obstacles, it works in terms of openings. What looks like a closed door in the physical world is often an opening in the unseen, one that leads to a part of yourself you have not yet embodied. Think of it like walking through a house you've lived in for years, only to find a hallway you never noticed before. At first, it's unsettling. How could it have been there all along without you seeing it? But once you step into that hallway, you realize it connects you to rooms you never imagined you had access to. That's what challenges do, they reveal hidden corridors within you. The problem is, most of us have been trained to see challenges as something to avoid, or to fight until they're gone. We grit our teeth, push through, and sometimes we come out the other side, so focused on survival that we miss the gift entirely. But if you can meet a challenge with curiosity instead of resistance, it changes the way it unfolds. Curiosity says, what is this here to show me? What part of myself is waiting on the other side of this door? When you begin to ask those kinds of questions, your relationship with discomfort shifts. You no longer see it as an enemy but as a guide. Discomfort becomes the signal that a doorway is near, and the bigger the discomfort, the more profound the opening might be. I've noticed in my own life that the most transformative periods often came disguised as the most difficult. Times when I felt stripped down to nothing financially, emotionally, even spiritually. Yet, in those moments, something extraordinary happened. I became more present. The noise of the unnecessary fell away. I could hear the quieter truths, the ones that were drowned out before by the hum of my comfort zone. Challenges have a way of stripping you to your essence, and in that stripped-down state, you realize something liberating. You are more than your circumstances. You are more than the story your mind tells about this moment. You are the presence moving through it. And that presence, your true self, is never diminished by what happens around you. From a quantum perspective, every challenge holds within it countless possible outcomes. The one you step into depends not on how forcefully you push against the obstacle, but on the frequency you hold as you approach it. Fear will lead you to the path of retreat. Faith, even if it's the smallest flicker, will lead you through the door to a wider version of yourself. And here's the part that still amazes me once you step through. The old challenge often loses its weight entirely. It's not that it disappears, it's that you are no longer the same person who met it. You've shifted. You've grown into someone who no longer needs that particular test to awaken the part of you it was designed to reach. So the next time you find yourself face to face with what feels like a wall, pause. Take a breath. Imagine it not as something blocking your way, but as a door you've been chosen to open. Ask yourself, who will I be on the other side? Then step forward, not with force, but with the quiet knowing that this moment, too, is a gift. Because the truth is, every challenge has only ever asked one thing of you to meet it, as the doorway to more of who you are. And when you do, you stop being someone who merely survives life. You become someone who walks through it awake. 7. Living as one who has already been chosen. There's a shift that happens deep inside when you stop trying to earn your place in life and start living from the knowing that you already belong. It's not loud. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or a grand announcement. It's quiet, so quiet. In fact, that it almost feels like remembering something you once knew, but had somehow forgotten along the way. Living as one who has already been chosen isn't about arrogance or entitlement. It's not about thinking you're above others or that life owes you anything. It's about stepping into the truth that your worth is not on trial here. You were enough before you lifted a finger to prove it. You were enough before you reached any goal, healed any wound, or earned any praise. The old version of you might have lived with a subtle undercurrent of striving, always pushing, always proving, always hoping that the next achievement, the next relationship, the next breakthrough would finally make you feel complete. But the truth is that hunger for validation is endless, because it comes from a part of the self that believes it is lacking, no matter how much you feed it. It always asks for more. When you live as one who has been chosen, you stop feeding that hunger. You don't need to fight for a seat at the table. You already know the table was set with you in mind. And in that knowing, something extraordinary happens. Your actions are no longer driven by fear of not being enough. They're driven by love, creativity, and a sense of deep alignment. It's like the difference between planting seeds in desperate hope that something will grow, and planting them with quiet certainty because you trust the soil, the rain, and the seasons. When you trust that you have already been chosen, every action you take becomes an expression of joy, not an audition for worthiness. From the lens of inner awareness, and even from the perspective of quantum reality, this shift changes everything. In the quantum field, the energy you bring into a moment shapes the outcome of that moment. If you act from lack, you call forth experiences that match that lack. If you act from the fullness of already being chosen, you magnetize experiences that reflect that fullness. Life responds not to what you demand, but to what you embody. You may notice that when you live this way, the constant tension in your chest eases. Your choices become more intentional. You're not rushing to chase every opportunity, because you know the right ones will resonate with who you truly are. You stop over-explaining yourself to others, because you're no longer seeking their approval as proof of your value. You stop measuring your days by what you've achieved and start measuring them by how deeply you've lived. And here's something beautiful: living as one who has been chosen frees you to see others in the same way. You no longer view people through the lens of competition or comparison. You recognize that they, too, have their place at the table, that their worth was never in question either. This changes the texture of your interactions suddenly. It's not about who's ahead or behind, but about walking side by side, each carrying their own light. But make no mistake, this way of living takes courage. It means letting go of the old armor, the one you wore for years to protect yourself from judgment or rejection. It means stepping into situations without the familiar fuel of fear or the rush of proving someone wrong. It means trusting that even without the armor, you are safe, because what you are is untouchable. There will be moments when the old patterns whisper, "You have to fight for this. You have to prove yourself again." And in those moments, you'll have a choice. You can return to the old battlefield, or you can smile gently at that voice and say, "I've already been chosen. I don't need to fight for what is already mine." Living as one who has already been chosen is not a passive state. It's active, but it's an activity born from stillness. It's doing from a place of being. It's allowing your steps to come from the deepest part of you, the part that is untouched by fear, doubt, or the shifting opinions of the world. And when you live from that place, you begin to notice a quiet miracle. Life flows with you, not against you. The river doesn't question whether it is allowed to reach the ocean. It simply moves, guided by a current that has always been there. In the same way, when you embrace the truth of your own chosenness, you move through life with an unshakable ease, not because the path is free of challenges, but because you no longer doubt your right to walk it. And perhaps the greatest gift of all is that in living this way, you become a mirror for others. You show them, not through grand speeches, but through your presence, that they too have already been chosen. You invite them to lay down their armor, to stop auditioning for a role they've already been given, and to step fully into the life that has been waiting for them all along. 8. The breath of intuition. Intuition is not a flicker in the dark that appears and disappears without reason. It is the steady pulse of the life you have already chosen, breathing quietly beneath the noise of the mind. It does not shout or demand, it hums. And if you learn to listen for it, you'll realize it's been guiding you far longer than you ever knew. So many of us mistake intuition for a rare spark, a gut feeling that arrives only in dramatic moments. But intuition is less like lightning and more like the tide it moves in and out, constant and dependable. Even if you're not paying attention, it is the whisper of your chosen future, weaving its way into the present, asking you to align with it, one small decision at a time. Each time you choose to trust that quiet knowing, instead of the fearful chatter of doubt, you shorten the distance between where you stand and where you are meant to be. It's as if the future you are calling in exhales, and you breathe in that same air. This exchange, this invisible rhythm, becomes the compass that guides your steps without force, without panic, without the need for proof. I think of it like walking through a foggy forest at dawn. You cannot see the entire path ahead, but you can see just enough for the next step, and with each step, more of the path reveals itself. Your intuition is that light breaking through the mist, not a floodlight that shows you the end of the road, but a gentle beam that says, "This way, now this way." Of course, the mind often resists this softness. It craves certainty, maps, guarantees. It wants to calculate the odds before it moves. But intuition asks for a different kind of courage, the kind that acts in harmony with an unseen truth. And in a world addicted to instant clarity, this can feel almost radical. What I've learned is that intuition rarely speaks in dramatic commands. It comes as a nudge, a pull toward one choice and away from another, a feeling of expansion when you think of one possibility, and a subtle contraction when you consider another. It is the warm ease in your chest when you're aligned, and the quiet tightness when you're not. The key is not to treat these sensations as passing curiosities, but as part of a conversation with life itself. When you treat your intuition like breath, something you continuously notice and respond to, you stop fearing that you'll miss your destiny. You understand that destiny is not a single, fragile door you might walk past. It's a living current. And as long as you keep attuning to it, it will keep guiding you. Listening to your intuition doesn't mean life becomes free of challenge. It means you navigate challenge with a different posture, one of trust instead of tension. It means that even when the external world is unclear, you carry a sense of inner direction. And this inner direction is invaluable, because it's not based on someone else's blueprint for your life. It's drawn from the deeper intelligence that already knows the shape of your becoming. There's also something liberating in realizing that you don't have to get every single choice right. Intuition is patient. Even when you veer off course, it doesn't scold, it simply recalculates, offering you a new way forward from wherever you are. Like the tide returning to shore, it knows there are infinite ways to reach you. The more you honor these subtle signals, the stronger they become. The gap between the whisper and your ability to hear it begins to shrink. And soon, you no longer see your intuition as a mysterious force. You see it as your native language, the one you were fluent in before the world taught you to mistrust it. And here is the truth: every time you listen, you are not just making a good decision, you are stepping into resonance with a life that is already waiting for you. You are breathing in the same rhythm as the version of yourself who has already arrived. And in that shared breath, the present and the future collapse into one. It's in these moments that you realize you were never chasing your future. You were simply learning how to hear it, calling you home. 9. You are not attracting. You are the reality. We've been taught to think of life as something out there, moving toward us or away from us, as though we stand in one place and send out magnetic waves to pull in what we want. It's a compelling image, but it's incomplete. The deeper truth is not that you are attracting something separate from you, but that you are the field in which everything happens. You are the space from which your entire reality emerges. Every moment of awareness is like a quantum measurement, a silent choice among infinite possibilities. When you observe, you are not merely watching reality unfold. You are collapsing the vast ocean of potential into a single, living experience. In that instant, you are not a passive witness. You are the painter holding the brush, the composer striking the note, the gardener planting the seed. And here's what's beautiful: this creation doesn't happen someday. It happens now, and now, and now again. The present moment is not a stepping stone toward reality. It is reality. The more you understand this, the less you feel like you need to chase, pull, or force life into shape. You stop trying to attract like a magnet desperate for iron, and instead you realize, I am the field in which all magnets and all iron already exist. It's like standing by a river. If you believe the current is separate from you, you'll try to swim upstream to catch what you think you lack. But when you know you are the current, you stop chasing. You understand that every ripple, every bend, every branch floating by is an expression of the same flow you're made of. There is no over there to swim toward. There is only here. Unfolding endlessly, this shift is subtle, but it changes everything. When you see yourself as the source rather than the seeker, you stop measuring your life by what arrives or doesn't arrive. Instead, you measure it by the depth of alignment you feel with the truth of who you are. You stop asking, when will my reality change? And start living from the knowing that reality changes the moment you do. Quantum physics tells us that the observer and the observed are not truly separate. Your focus, your state of being, your inner coherence, these are not just responses to life. They are life in motion. You're not standing on the shore waiting for the tide to bring in your ship. You are the ocean itself, capable of shaping every wave, and the waves will reflect your inner tides. If you carry a frequency of lack, the ocean mirrors it, not because it's punishing you, but because it's neutral, faithfully reflecting the vibration you hold. But when you rest in the awareness of being the whole, not just a part, lack dissolves. You no longer feel like a small island calling for rescue. You remember you are the boundless water surrounding it. This is why the old language of attracting can sometimes keep us stuck. It subtly reinforces the idea that what you desire is separate from you, and that you must send something out to get it. But when you live as the reality, You see that there is no gap to close. What you desire is simply another face of yourself, waiting for you to step into the frequency where it already exists. This isn't about pretending or forcing belief. It's about inhabiting the knowing that every breath you take is both the cause and the effect of the universe's unfolding. You are not a visitor in your reality. You are its foundation, its canvas, its frame. From here, life stops feeling like a transaction and starts feeling like a conversation. Not what can I get, but what am I expressing right now? Not when will it happen, but how am I being it in this moment? This is the living prayer, not words spoken into emptiness, but the embodiment of the answer before it appears. And perhaps the most freeing part, once you live this way, you stop fearing that what you want might never come, because you see, with the quiet clarity of someone who has walked through the dark, that there is nowhere for it to come from. It's already here, woven into the fabric of you. All that's left is to recognize it, to breathe as it, to move as it, until the world around you has no choice but to mirror what you've already become. In that recognition, the chase ends, and life finally feels like home. 10. The power of synchronicity. There comes a point in your journey when life stops feeling like a scattered series of unrelated events and starts moving as if it has a rhythm, and somehow you're in step with it. You begin to notice the way certain people seem to appear at just the right time, offering a word, a connection, or even just a smile that shifts the course of your day. Opportunities seem to unfold not through struggle, but through a quiet alignment, as though life has been expecting you. From the outside, this can look like coincidence, random chance lining up in your favor. But from the inside, it feels entirely different. It feels like recognition. It's as if the external world is simply reflecting the coherence you've been nurturing within. Your thoughts, feelings, and actions are no longer pulling in different directions. There is a steady hum of agreement between who you are inside and the life you are living outside. Synchronicity isn't magic in the sense of defying the laws of nature. It is the law of nature. Once you see it clearly, when your inner state is scattered, life appears fragmented. When your inner state is in harmony, life mirrors that harmony with seamless timing. It's the same way an instrument, when tuned properly, resonates beautifully with the orchestra. It doesn't force its place, it simply belongs. I've learned that the most profound synchronicities are not about getting what you want in the exact way you imagined. They are about receiving what is in perfect resonance with who you are becoming. Sometimes this means a door opens exactly as you hoped. Other times, it means the door closes, but only so you can notice a hidden path you never would have considered. Either way, there is an unmistakable sense that life is not happening to you. But with you, this harmony doesn't require constant effort. In fact, it often arises when you release the tight grip of control and allow yourself to simply be in your truth. When you are anchored in clarity, when you've stopped pretending, stopped chasing, and started living from the core of what you value, you naturally gravitate toward people and circumstances that share that vibration. And just as naturally, they gravitate toward you. Think of it like the tide. The ocean doesn't rush to meet the shore. It moves with a steady, inevitable rhythm. The moon's pull is silent, invisible, yet utterly reliable. Your inner alignment works the same way. You don't have to force the right people, the right timing, or the right opportunities into place. You simply need to keep your inner current clear and consistent, and the rest begins to flow toward you without resistance. One of the most beautiful parts of living in synchronicity is the subtle reassurance it brings. It's as if life whispers, "Yes, you are on the path. Keep going." You might overhear a conversation that answers a question you've been holding in your heart. You might meet someone who has been where you're trying to go and offers the exact piece of wisdom you needed. You might find a book, a song, or a letter that speaks to you so directly it feels like it was placed in your hands on purpose. And maybe it was. But here's the truth that keeps this from slipping into magical thinking. Synchronicity is not about waiting for the universe to do all the work while you sit idle. It's about walking in a way that matches what you seek. When your steps are in rhythm with the song of your own soul, life doesn't have to drag you toward your destiny. It dances with you toward it. There is a deep humility in this, because you begin to see that you are not the sole architect of your life, nor are you a powerless pawn in it. You are a co-creator, listening for quez, responding with grace, allowing the dance to carry you into places you could not have scripted. This balance of active participation and receptive trust is the ground where synchronicity thrives. And perhaps the most healing part of it all is realizing you are not lost. Even when life feels still or uncertain, there are invisible threads weaving on your behalf. You might not see them yet, but you can feel them in the gentle way your heart softens, in the small invitations that appear when you least expect them, in the sense that you are being met halfway by something greater than yourself. Synchronicity reminds you that life is not random. It is intimate, it is intelligent, and it is deeply personal. Every connection, every chance encounter, every perfect piece of timing is not proof that the universe suddenly remembered you. It's proof that you have remembered yourself. And when you live from that place, the world can't help but answer in kind. 11. The shape of the inner gaze. Reality doesn't shift the moment something new appears before you. It shifts the moment you begin to see the familiar in a new light. This is the quiet revolution, the one that doesn't require grand gestures or sudden upheavals. It happens in the simple act of noticing what has always been there, but from a place in yourself you had not yet reached. We often imagine transformation as an external event, a new job, a new relationship, a sudden move, or an unexpected windfall. But the most enduring change begins with the way you look at the world. The same room you've walked through 1,000 times can feel different when you enter it with gratitude instead of indifference. The same conversation, repeated for years, can take on a new depth. When you finally hear the truth behind the words, the inner gaze is not about ignoring what is difficult or pretending that everything is perfect. It's about meeting reality as it is, but without the filter of your old wounds, fears, or expectations. When you shift the lens through which you see, you shift the meaning you assign to everything, and meaning is what gives reality its weight. Two people can stand in the same rainstorm. One feels only the inconvenience of being wet. The other feels the relief of the earth being nourished. The rain has not changed, only the gaze has. Changing your inner gaze is like finding a hidden doorway in the maze you've been wandering. You may have walked past it countless times, too focused on the walls to notice the opening. And then, one day, you look differently, not harder, but softer, and you see the door waiting. This is not the door to a different life. It is the door to a different way of living the same life. There is a gentle discipline in cultivating this new way of seeing. It's not about forcing yourself into optimism or rejecting the parts of life that are painful. It's about allowing light to enter the corners you've kept in shadow, and letting that light reveal layers of meaning you couldn't perceive before. When you stop assuming that you already know what something is, you give it permission to become more. I've found that the inner gaze grows clearer in moments of stillness. When the noise quiets both around you and within you, you can see the fine details that were blurred by the rush of daily living. You notice the way the sunlight touches the wall, the way a loved one's laugh rises and falls, the way your own breath feels in your chest. These are not just moments. They are entry points into a deeper intimacy with life. And yet, the beauty of the inner gaze is that it doesn't require perfect conditions. You can be in the middle of chaos, surrounded by uncertainty, and still choose how you see. You might look at a challenge not as a punishment but as an invitation to grow. You might look at a loss not only as an ending but also as a clearing. making space for something that could not have entered before. This doesn't mean the pain disappears. It means the pain is no longer the only truth. Your gaze is wide enough now to hold the sorrow and the gift at the same time. You stop asking life to remove all the shadows, and instead, allow them to give contrast to the light. The most profound shifts in my own life have come when I stopped demanding that the world change first. Instead, I asked myself, what if I looked again? What if I softened here? What if I turned just slightly? Enough to catch a new angle of the same view. Those small pivots have opened doors I didn't know were there. They have turned locked rooms into gardens. They have turned endings into beginnings I could never have scripted. In this way, the shape of the inner gaze is fluid. It changes as you change. It grows more spacious as you let go of the need to control, more luminous as you release the stories that cast everything in shadow. And the miracle is that, when your gaze changes, the world seems to change with it, not because it suddenly became something else, but because you are now able to receive it as it truly is. Perhaps this is the quiet secret. You don't need to escape the maze. You only need to see it differently. Every corridor, every turn, every dead end can reveal something, if you are willing to let your eyes adjust. And when you do, you may discover that the maze was never keeping you lost. It was leading you deeper into yourself. One shift of vision at a time. 12. Intuition, the soul's compass. In a world that speaks in constant noise, screens flashing, voices competing, demands pulling at every corner of your attention, choosing to become still enough to hear the quiet voice within is one of the most radical acts you can take. It is not passivity. It is not withdrawal. It is an act of courage, a decision to step out of the storm just long enough to remember that you have your own compass, and it does not belong to anyone else. This compass is your intuition, but not in the way it is often romanticized. It's not only the sudden, magical knowing or the gut feeling that appears out of nowhere. It is the patient, steady awareness that rises from the deepest part of you, the part untouched by trends, by fears, by the constant churning of other people's opinions. It is the voice that knows where you are meant to go, not because it has mapped every road, but because it feels the alignment in your bones when you are headed in the right direction. To follow this compass, you must first remember that it is yours. Many of us have been taught to distrust it, to trade it for external validation, to wait for permission from the world. Before taking a single step, we learn to consult every source but ourselves. And in doing so, we forget that the soul has been guiding us all along through the unease in our bodies when something isn't right, through the quiet pull toward a choice that feels both terrifying and true, through the way we light up when we imagine a certain future. Listening to your intuition is not always comfortable. In fact, it often asks you to move against the current of everything familiar. It may ask you to leave behind what looks safe from the outside. It may ask you to walk away from a path that makes sense to everyone else, but feels like slow suffocation to you. It may ask you to trust a direction that you cannot yet see, only sense. This is why stillness is not weakness. It's training. It's the practice of hearing yourself so clearly that when the world shouts its competing instructions, you can smile, thank it for its concern, and then turn back to the quiet truth within you. You stop running from uncertainty because you realize that you were never meant to know all the answers at once. You were only meant to know the next step and to take it. Sometimes, your intuition will whisper so softly that you will doubt you heard anything at all. But the more you honor it, the louder it becomes, not in volume, but in clarity. You will begin to recognize the subtle difference between fear dressed as caution and wisdom dressed as peace. You will learn that just because a choice is difficult doesn't mean it's wrong. And just because a choice is easy doesn't mean it's right. Following the soul's compass requires trust. Not blind trust, but the kind that grows from experience. You take one step in faith, and life meets you there. with a small confirmation, a conversation that opens a door, a sign that shows you you're not alone, a sense of relief that settles into your chest. These confirmations may not come in the form you expect, but they are unmistakable when they arrive. And here is the part most people forget. Intuition is not only for the big, life-changing decisions. It is just as alive in the smallest choices of your day. It is in the food you choose to nourish yourself, the words you choose to speak or withhold, the way you decide to rest when the world insists you should push harder. Every small act of alignment strengthens the compass. Every time you honor it, you deepen the trust between you and your own soul. There will be times when you follow this compass, and the path ahead feels uncertain, even lonely. This is natural. Not everyone will understand why you chose the way you did. They don't have to. The compass was not given to them. It was entrusted to you. And only you can feel its pull in the marrow of your being. When you live guided by your soul's compass, you stop measuring your life only by milestones and outcomes. You begin to measure it by alignment, by how much your outer life reflects the truth inside you. You notice the quiet joy that comes from knowing you are in the right place. Even if you can't explain it, you feel the relief of no longer forcing yourself into shapes that don't fit. You taste the freedom of walking a path that is both mysterious and deeply familiar at the same time. And maybe, in the end, that is what following your intuition really is: not a leap into the unknown, but a return to the most known place of all, the home inside you that has been waiting patiently for you to remember the way back. 13. Choice and destiny. It's easy to think of free will and destiny as two forces locked in conflict, as if one must win and the other must lose. But when you've lived long enough, when you've stumbled, gotten lost, and somehow found your way again, you begin to see they are not enemies at all. They are dance partners. Each one shapes the other in ways that are subtle, graceful, and often invisible, until you step back far enough to see the whole picture. Destiny is not the rigid script many people imagine. It is more like a frame, lovingly chosen by your soul before you took your first breath. Inside that frame lies the essence of why you came here, the themes you would explore, the lessons you would be offered, the gifts you were meant to uncover. This frame holds the key points on your map, the mountains you might climb, the rivers you might cross, the inner deserts you might wander through until you find your own oasis. Free will is everything you do within that frame. It's the brush in your hand, the colors you choose, the strokes you lay down. It is the infinite ways you can fill that canvas. Even though the edges remain, you may paint in bold colors or in soft shades, with quick, impulsive marks, or with patient, deliberate detail. You may fill the frame in a way no one else has ever imagined. Or you may try to mimic a picture you've seen before, only to find it doesn't feel like yours. This is why free will matters so deeply. The frame may guide the boundaries of your story, but the way the story unfolds is always in your hands. Life doesn't force you to take a single path. It offers crossroads, each one a quiet invitation to create. Some choices lead to joy quickly. Others take the long way around. But all of them shape you. And in the shaping, they fulfill the deeper promise of your destiny. Many people waste years waiting for a perfect choice, as if the wrong turn will destroy their fate. But the truth is gentler and more empowering. You can't miss your destiny. You can take detours. You can stall. You can loop back on yourself. But the frame is still there, waiting for you to fill it. What changes is the texture of your journey, the layers of meaning you collect, the way your soul learns to express itself more clearly through every decision you make. Think of a river. The source and the sea are fixed points, that's destiny. But the current between them is alive, shifting with every bend, every rainfall, every stone that drops into its path, that's free will. The river might rush or meander, carve deep valleys, or spread into quiet wetlands. but it will find its way to the ocean all the same. When you see life this way, you stop treating choices like landmines. You start seeing them as doors. Some will open to bright rooms filled with laughter. Others to long corridors you must walk before you find the light again. But all of them belong to the same house, your house. And every step you take, even the hesitant ones, builds a deeper familiarity with the architecture of your own soul. There is a kind of peace that comes from this understanding. You no longer panic when the path ahead is unclear. Because you trust that the frame is holding you, you no longer cling to one fixed image of the future. Because you realize the beauty lies in the painting itself, not just in the finished scene. You can choose boldly, knowing that even mistakes have their place, that they add depth and contrast to the whole. And perhaps most importantly, you stop living as if your life is something happening to you. You begin to live as if you are in conversation with it. You meet the invitations destiny sends with the brushstrokes of your will. You say yes when the moment calls you forward, and you say no when the path asks you to betray yourself. You understand that both answers shape the art you are here to make. In the end, destiny is not a sentence handed down, and free will is not a loophole to escape it. They are two hands holding the same thread, weaving a pattern only you can bring into being. One hand remembers the design chosen long ago. The other moves with the freedom and curiosity of this present moment. Together, they create a life that is both guided and deeply your own, a masterpiece in motion. 14. The silence of presence. There comes a moment, sometimes after years of searching, when you realize that you don't need another answer, another explanation, or another plan. You simply need to be here. And when you truly arrive in this moment, it is as if the weight of the past slips quietly from your shoulders, and the imagined storms of the future dissolve before they ever form. All that remains is this breath, this stillness, this life unfolding right now. Presence has a silence to it, not the awkward, heavy silence of something unsaid, but the deep, living silence of something fully known. It is the kind of silence you feel when you stand beside an ancient tree or look out over the ocean at dawn. Nothing is rushing. Nothing is trying to be anything other than what it is. And in that stillness, you begin to sense that nothing is missing, not in the world, and not in you. When you live caught between the past and the future, the mind never stops speaking. It tells you stories of what you should have done differently, what might happen if you're not careful, what you must chase to feel whole. It talks so much that you begin to believe life itself is a constant negotiation, a deal to be made with time. But presence doesn't negotiate. It invites, it whispers, come sit here. Everything is already happening. This is not to say that your life becomes passive, that you stop caring or acting. In fact, the opposite happens. When you are present, you act with more clarity, more kindness, more precision, because you are no longer reacting to ghosts of the past or shadows of the future. You are responding to what is actually in front of you. And in that shift, even simple actions, pouring a cup of tea, listening to a friend, walking through the quiet streets, become infused with meaning. Presence changes your relationship with time. Instead of chasing after it or trying to outrun it, you begin to walk with it. You see that every moment is complete in itself, not a stepping stone to somewhere better. And strangely, it is from this place of non-chasing that life often begins to open in ways you could never have forced. Opportunities appear, people arrive. The next step becomes clear, not because you chased it, but because you stood still long enough to see it. The silence of presence is not empty. It is full of sensation, of subtle beauty, of quiet truths that can only be heard when the noise dies down. You begin to notice the texture of your breath, the way sunlight bends around the edge of a curtain, the small flicker of relief in your body when you finally let yourself rest. These details are not distractions from real life. They are the very fabric of it. It can be uncomfortable at first. Many of us have built our sense of self on movement, on doing, achieving, solving. To sit in stillness can feel like you're wasting time, like you're falling behind. But the more you allow yourself to simply be, the more you see that nothing important is slipping away. In fact, you may discover that the thing you've been seeking, the sense of peace, of homecoming, was waiting for you here, all along. In the silence you used to avoid, in presence, even your questions change. You no longer ask, "When will I get there?" or "What if I fail?" Instead, you begin to ask, "What is here right now?" And sometimes the answer is simple: a breath, a bird's call, the warmth of your own hands. Sometimes the answer is a quiet knowing that you are exactly where you need to be. And when you touch that still point within you, you carry it into the world. You find you can be present in a crowded room, in the middle of a challenge, even in the uncertainty of change. You are no longer pulled entirely into the noise around you, because you've learned that silence is not a place you visit, it is a place you live from. In the end, the silence of presence is not an escape from life. It is the full arrival into it. It is the realization that you do not need to wait for the right conditions to feel at peace. Peace is what happens when you stop leaving the moment you're in. And when you choose to stay, you discover that the present moment is not just enough. It is everything. You have always been chosen. There is a quiet truth that waits patiently beneath all the noise of your life. A truth so steady, it doesn't need to announce itself. You have always been chosen. Not because someone outside of you appointed you, not because you reached a certain level of worthiness, but because the very fabric of who you are is woven from the same creative power that spins galaxies into being. You are not a guest in this existence. You are a thread in its design. Every season you've walked through, every rise and fall, every joy and ache has been a gold filament, carefully threading itself through the tapestry of your life. Some threads were bright and easy to weave. Others were heavy, tangled, and hard to pull through. But none of them were wasted. Together they have created something singular, an image, a pattern, a life that could only ever be yours. When you understand this, you stop measuring your worth by where you think you should be. You stop chasing validation like a thirsty traveler looking for water that was always in their own hands. You begin to walk with a different posture, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty, as if every step you take is not a question mark, but a period at the end of a sentence that says, "I am exactly where I need to be." From this day forward, you can choose to move through life as if you are already in the right place, at the right time, carrying every resource you need to live the mission that has always been yours. It doesn't mean there won't be challenges. It doesn't mean you'll know every answer in advance. It means you'll no longer live as if you are missing something. You will no longer beg for permission to exist fully. Every breath becomes an affirmation. Every choice becomes a declaration. Every action born from love becomes a ripple in the great ocean of life. A ripple that says, "I have been chosen. I am chosen. I will always be chosen." And you will see how this isn't just a personal mantra, it is a shift in how the world responds to you. Because when you stand in the truth of your own belonging, the world can't help but reconfigure around that truth. Opportunities will begin to align. The right people will enter your life not as random encounters, but as part of a larger choreography. Doors will open, not because you force them, but because they recognize the frequency you carry. Life becomes less about pulling the future toward you, and more about stepping into the places that were always waiting for you to arrive. And here's the part that changes everything. The goal is no longer to get the dream. The goal is to become it. To embody so fully the love, the courage, the wisdom, or the freedom you seek that it can't help but radiate outward. The dream stops being something in the distance and becomes the very air you breathe. There is nothing left to prove. Nothing left to bargain for. Just the simple, profound practice of living as the one who has already been chosen, not in some distant future, but here, in this breath, in this exact place, where your feet meet the ground. When you live from that knowing, the way you speak changes. The way you walk into a room changes. The way you meet both joy and sorrow changes. You no longer fear that life will pass you by, because you see now, it has always been moving with you, never against you. And perhaps, one day, when you look back, you will realize that being chosen was never about a single moment or a single achievement. It was about remembering, again and again, that your existence is not an accident, that your heart has always been a home for something eternal. So take this truth into tomorrow. Let it steady your hands, lift your chin, and soften your heart. Let every choice from here on out be rooted in love, not lack. And as you move forward, may your life itself become a living reminder to you and to anyone who crosses your path that you have always been chosen, and that this is not just a gift, it is your birthright.